The British Navy was feared across the world. Its fleet was massive, its discipline unmatched, its cannons thundered with authority. And yet, in the midst of this overwhelming power, there was one man, a pirate, who dared to mock the empire. He didn't fight with brute force. He didn't build an armada. Instead, he used wit, cunning, and an almost supernatural ability to vanish and reappear like a ghost on the waves. This is not a tale of treasure buried on some sandy shore, nor of bloody battles where cutlasses clashed. This is a story of brains over brawn, of a pirate who studied the habits of his enemy, who turned fog, tide, and rumor into weapons sharper than any blade. Against all odds, he humiliated the world's most powerful navy. Tonight, you'll hear how one outlaw of the sea played chess with an empire and won. You'll see the empire's rage, the pirate's cunning, and the dangerous game where every misstep meant death. It is a story whispered in taverns, carried on salty winds, and etched into the eternal memory of the ocean. This is how one pirate outsmarted the entire British Navy. To understand this story, we must first understand the colossus that ruled the seas, the British Royal Navy. In the 18th century, their warships were floating fortresses, walls of oak armed with rows of cannons. Each ship carried hundreds of sailors drilled into strict obedience. The Navy wasn't just a military force, it was the hammer of empire, ensuring Britain's control over colonies, trade routes, and oceans alike. These ships could blockade ports, hunt down pirates, and deliver devastation with a single broadside. To face them head-on was suicide. Most pirates avoided them at all costs. But our cunning outlaw knew something the admirals could never imagine. Strength is nothing if your enemy cannot find you, cannot catch you, cannot predict you. The Navy sailed in rigid formations, their admirals proud of their discipline. Yet that same discipline was their weakness. They thought in straight lines, in predictable patterns. The pirate thought in shadows, in half-truths, in misdirection. It was a battle between order and chaos was about to win. Most pirates fought with reckless bravery, but not this one. He knew his ship was too small, his cannons too few, his men too wild to face the Royal Navy head-on. Instead, he turned the very sea into his ally. The tides, the fog, the storms, all became part of his strategy. He spent nights studying maps stolen from merchant captains. He memorized the Navy's patrol routes, their schedules, even the favored harbors of their admirals. He knew which trade ships carried food, rum, or gold, and more importantly, which ones the Navy would ignore. He learned to strike not at strength, but at weakness. This pirate's genius was deception. He slipped into taverns dressed as a fisherman, listening to drunken sailors boast of their commander's next moves. He bribed dockhands to spread false rumors of his whereabouts. Sometimes he deliberately allowed whispers of his plans to reach British ears, leading whole squadrons into empty waters while he attacked elsewhere. For the Navy, he became a phantom. One day their charts marked him in the Caribbean, the next in the Azores, and later in waters off Africa. No fleet could be everywhere at once, and his unpredictability turned the ocean into his chessboard. To the admirals, he was a nuisance. To his men, he was a genius. And to every sailor who crossed his path, he was proof that brains could outmatch brute force. The British Navy was not blind to his tricks. They tried to corner him with blockades, cutting off harbors and trade routes. They set traps, luring him with bait ships disguised as merchants. But every time, the pirates slipped through their fingers. He used decoys, rafts with lanterns that mimicked the glow of a ship's deck, drawing British fire into the night. He painted his sails and hull to look like harmless traders, drifting past warships without a second glance. By the time the admirals realized the deception, their supplies were gone, their escorts plundered, their pride shattered. Some whispered he had spies inside the Navy itself, a sailor here, an informant there, men willing to risk treason for gold. Rum barrels carried hidden notes, and secret messages passed through Caribbean ports. Whether fact or legend, the effect was the same. The Navy chased shadows, while the pirates struck where they were weakest. Every successful escape humiliated the admirals further. Reports flowed back to London, each one angrier than the last. How could a lone outlaw make a mockery of the empire's greatest fleet? The truth was simple. The Navy thought in straight lines, but the pirate thought like the sea, unpredictable, fluid, and impossible to catch. And if you're enjoying this tale of cunning on the high seas, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment about your favorite pirate legend, and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling adventures from history. The Royal Navy had always prided itself on being untouchable. For centuries, its ships were the iron fist of the empire, crushing rebellion and piracy wherever it appeared. But this pirate carved cracks into that mighty fist. Every failed chase, every lost convoy, every rumor of his escape spread like wildfire. In taverns across the Caribbean and beyond, sailors laughed over mugs of rum at the Navy's misfortune. Pirate crews toasted his name, while merchant captains whispered it in dread. The admirals, meanwhile, seethed in silence. Their polished halls in London echoed with shame as reports stacked higher. Once again, the pirate had slipped away. Once again, he had humiliated the crown. For the Navy, it was more than lost cargo. It was lost honor. Britain's enemies found encouragement in his success. Other pirates copied his tactics, spreading chaos across trade routes. The very reputation of the empire was under threat. The admirals had been trained to fight enemies with cannons and broadsides. But how do you fight a shadow? How do you battle an enemy who refuses to meet you where you stand strongest? The Navy tried harsher punishments, offering higher rewards for his capture, and even sending entire squadrons just to track him. But no matter how many ships they sent, he slipped away like water through their fingers. His legend grew, and the Royal Navy's embarrassment deepened. The Empire was discovering, much to its horror, that sometimes one pirate could do more damage to their pride than an entire fleet of war. For most pirates, the end was always the same: capture, trial, and a noose. But this pirate's fate is less certain. Some say he vanished into the mist, retiring with hidden treasure. Others claim he died at sea, his ship swallowed by a storm. What is certain is that his legend lived on far longer than his life. Unlike others who sought only plunder, this man showed the world that cunning could rival cannons. His greatest weapon was not his cutlass, but his mind. He became a model for countless outlaws who followed, pirates who copied his disguises, his tricks, his unpredictable movements. Even navies of other nations studied his methods, learning how deception could be just as powerful as firepower. The Royal Navy, for all its power, never forgot the sting of being made a fool. Officers whispered about him for decades, using his name as a warning. Underestimate no enemy, no matter how small. He proved that one ship could humiliate an empire, that chaos could unsettle even the strictest order. Legends like his are rare, for they remind us that history is not always written by kings and generals. Sometimes it is written by rogues. Sometimes it is carried on waves, in whispers of taverns, and in the salty laughter of those who live free. The pirate who outsmarted the British Navy may have vanished, but his story still drifts across the seas, a shadow on the water, forever untouchable. And so the tale ends, not with a cannon's roar, but with silence on the waves. The pirate who outsmarted the British Navy did not defeat them through bloodshed or numbers. He defeated them with wit, patience, and shadows. His ship may have been small, his crew ragged, his guns few, but he turned the sea itself into his battlefield. And on that battlefield, he was unbeatable. To the British Admirals, his name became a scar, a reminder that even the greatest fleet could be humbled by a single outlaw. To other pirates, he was proof that freedom could defy empires. And to us, centuries later, he remains a story of brilliance. A man who showed that courage isn't always about charging into battle. Sometimes it's about knowing when to disappear, when to mislead, and when to strike from the shadows. The ocean has swallowed countless ships and countless men, yet legends like his never sink. They float, carried on the tide, whispered by sailors who dream of freedom. He may be nameless, faceless, a ghost lost to history, but the sea remembers, and the empire, once mocked by a single pirate, never forgot. This is how one man outsmarted an empire. This is the legacy of the pirate who beat the British Navy.